Are you graduating soon? Or maybe starting your first real job? Does all the talk about money, investing, and retirement just feel overwhelming? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. We're always taught that finance is some kind of hard science. A world of spreadsheets and complicated terms that everyone else just seems to get. But what if I told you the real key to financial success isn't what you know, but how you act? Let's dig into that because we're about to completely reframe how you think about your money and your future. Okay, so let's kick things off with a story. It's about two guys who could not have been more different on the surface. One was a janitor, and the other was a top-tier finance executive. Their stories aren't just fascinating, they are literally the key to understanding everything else we're going to talk about today. So on one side, you've got Ronald Reed. He spent his life fixing cars at a gas station and sweeping floors as a janitor. Pretty simple, right? Then on the other side, you have Richard Fiscone. This guy was a Harvard-educated executive at the huge investment firm Merrill Lynch. One had a basic education, the other had the fancy MBA, the whole nine yards. But here's where it gets really interesting. One of these men became a secret multi-millionaire. The other, despite his incredible resume, went completely bankrupt. So take a second. Who do you think was who? Your gut reaction is probably based on everything we're taught about what success is supposed to look like. Believe it or not, it was the janitor. Ronald Reed passed away in 2014 with a net worth of over $8 million, and he left most of it to his local library and hospital. So what was his secret? Well, here's the thing. There was no secret. He just saved what little he could, invested that money in stable, well-known companies, blue-chip stocks, and then he just waited for decades. His wealth wasn't about a huge salary. It was all about patience. And Richard Fiscone, the Harvard executive, well, he borrowed a ton of money to live this incredibly lavish lifestyle. We're talking a mansion that cost $90,000 a month just for upkeep. So when the 2008 financial crisis hit, his whole high-risk world just collapsed, and he lost everything. The man trained at the highest levels of finance went totally broke. So what on earth does this wild story tell us? It shows that the gap between a janitor and a Harvard MBA can be completely wiped out, even flipped upside down, by something that you just don't learn in business school. It's not about being smart. It's about your behavior. This quote from author Morgan Housel absolutely nails it. He says, "Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, where how you behave is more important than what you know. It's about your psychology. It's about how you handle greed, how you handle fear. It's about being patient." Ronald Reed had those soft skills. Richard Fiscone, for all his intelligence, clearly didn't. And this brings us to the core idea, the psychology of money. We're so often told that money works like physics, with these fixed rules and formulas. But it doesn't. It's much more like psychology. It's messy, it's full of emotions, weird biases, and all of our individual quirks. It's really more about understanding yourself than it is about understanding a spreadsheet. Okay, this brings us to another huge idea. Have you ever gotten financial advice from your parents or grandparents that just felt off? Maybe even totally outdated? Well, there's a really good reason for that, and it gets to the very heart of why we all see money so differently. The reason is, no one is crazy. Think about this for a second. Your own personal experience with money makes up this tiny, tiny fraction of everything that's ever happened in the financial world. But that tiny sliver accounts for like 80% of how you think the world works. You, your parents, your friends, you've all been shaped by totally different economic times. And for each of you, that small piece of history feels like the absolute undeniable truth. Let me give you a perfect example. If you were born in 1950, you spent your teens and 20s watching the stock market do basically nothing. Your whole financial worldview was shaped by stagnation. But if you were born in 1970, you saw the market multiply 10 times over during those exact same formative years. Your experience was all about incredible growth. So would these two people have the same view on investing? No way. Not a chance. One person learned that stocks are risky and they don't go anywhere. The other learned they're an amazing wealth-generating machine. And here's the key. Neither of them is crazy. They're just products of their own unique and totally valid life experiences. Getting this is the first step to understanding why you and everyone you know might disagree about money. So if you're feeling a little lost, like you're supposed to be some kind of expert on all this stuff right out of college, I want you to just take a deep breath. Because when you actually look at the history of modern finance, you realize something pretty profound. We are all brand new to this. I mean, look at this. We've had currency for literally thousands of years. But the tools that we're all expected to master for our futures, the 401k didn't even exist until 1978. And the Roth IRA, a huge part of retirement planning today, was only created in 1998. If the Roth IRA were a person, it could literally be your classmate. So what's the big takeaway here? It is perfectly okay to feel like a beginner because when it comes to this stuff, we all are. Our parents weren't raised with these tools, and their parents certainly weren't. We're all part of this massive, ongoing experiment in personal finance. In a way, we're all just winging it together. So where does all this leave us? If success isn't about being the smartest person in the room, and if we're all just figuring this out as we go, what's the secret? Well, it's about turning this psychological awareness into your own personal superpower. And no, it's not a spreadsheet. Your first step to true financial well-being isn't about picking the perfect stock or creating some flawless budget. It's actually much simpler. First, just recognize that your view of money is totally unique to you and your life story. Second, understand that other people see it differently for their own valid reasons. And third, and this is the big one, stop searching for the one right answer and start focusing on understanding your own behaviors, your own fears, and your own goals. So I want to leave you with this final thought. As you're starting your career and building your life, you're going to be hit with a million financial questions. But before you ask, what should I do with my money, try asking a much more powerful question first. Why do I think about money the way that I do? The answer to that question, that's where true, lasting financial well-being really begins.